Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of 3GIQ. I'm joined by my co-host Matt Gunlock, and we are joined here today by Parker Tomasi. Parker was previously a interviewee on episode 24, where we talked about going rifle distinguished. Really good shooter, currently the operations officer over at Weapons Training Battalion Stone Bay. And at the end of this month, Stone Bay is going to be putting on an intramural. This year, they have annually put on an intramural, but this year it's going to be a bit of a different flavor. So, Parker, thanks for coming along. And first question I have for you is just tell us about your intramural, the format, the dates, styles of shooting. Tell us all about it.
Sure. Thanks, guys, for having me on again. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so we're excited to host these intramurals this year at Stone Bay. Um, I'll give a brief overview of like the timeline, just that way listeners right up front kind of know what dates are associated with what for the competition. And then we'll get into talking about the styles of shooting and like the planning process behind it all. But definitely want to get the dates out. So if they lose interest early on, because I'm boring, then they'll at least know what dates they need to register by. So um, we're accepting registrations all the way up until November 22nd. Um, we changed up so we don't have to do chow procedures to bring in box chows for everyone. So we're basically going to release people for chow for an hour. So that'll allow us that cancels the lead time that we need for the chows to allow us for last minute registrations all the way up until the 22nd of November. Then we'll do some check-ins 22nd and 23rd, and units and Marines can kind of pick any time in that inside those two dates to come down to Stone Bay, check in, turn in any weapons paperwork that they need to store their weapons in our armory. We'll zero weapons early on, the 22nd, 23rd. That way, once we get to the competition, which will be the 28th of November through December 9th, that way day one of the competition doesn't have to be focused on zeroing, which is slow going. So day one and day two are going to be all ARQ and CPP, so annual rifle qualification and combat pistol program qualifications for pre-qual, as we're using that as kind of an initial assessment to get a baseline of where these shooters are at. And then we'll go into 2 days, so day 3 and 4 will be intermediate marksmanship techniques that'll be taught by our staff at Stone Bay. That'll be a rifle and pistol, short and long bay. Day 5 will be individual competition. So it'll be a mixture of USPSA style stages, gas gun style stages. That's all individual. Then we'll have the weekend to break, or as our inclement weather plan in case weather rolls in, since still is hurricane season. And then day 6 and 7, we'll go back to ARQ and CPP to actual conduct a formal qualification so we can record those scores. One, that'll give the shooters and the Marines their annual rifle and pistol qualifications so we can get that out of the way for them. But then we can compare that final qualification score to their initial pre-qualification scores, just to assess and see if our marksmanship instruction was actually giving them advantages and benefiting them, the individual Marine. We're also going to use those ARQ and CPP scores for the final aggregate for the competition. So one, it'll make the shooters kind of care about that score a little bit too. And then the next day will be team competitions. So any team from or any unit that's hosting a team will be able to partake and try and win a trophy back or keep it if they have it already.
Nice.
And then day 9 will be our admin day, weapons D issue, take all your weapons back to your unit's armory. And then day 10 will be the award ceremony. So the format really is all action style shooting. The scoring system is not going to be hit factor scoring. It's going to be all time plus, basically. No stages will have par times or anything like that. We're trying to keep it simple, one for the shooter, but also for my range staff, for my ROs, because this is, for a lot of them, this is their first match that they are hosting. So just kind of keep things simple. So yeah, the style and format, USPSA 2-gun, gas gun type stages. And we are going to do some ARQ and CPP. One, we're mandated to by order. We have to, because it gives the commanders an incentive to send their Marines down to Stone Bay and one, compete, but also knock their rifle calls out for the year.
I have a kind of couple things that could potentially help. So talk to Master Sergeant Capco from the Marine Corps shooting team. He may be able to give you a document, Excel document with formulas. Him and I were kind of talking about it whenever NCR was going on, to where he was tracking the scores for the prequal, and then they had all that training, and then they tracked all the scores for the actual qualification, just to see what the metric was and how much improvement there were in scores from pre-qual to qual, just so it can kind of give you a metric saying, hey, my guys did this. So he may already have something pre-generated that you could potentially use if you don't have that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I definitely don't. I'm not an Excel guru. I like to try to be, but definitely not. So I'll hit up Capco for sure. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I had something else I wanted to say, and I'm drawing a blank now. Oh, yeah, I got it. So am I correct with you saying that there's not going to be a part-time at all?
Correct. We're not doing part-times.
So
One of the stages is going to be a little bit longer, and I know our tar shot timers par out at 200.
so
Yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I would at least have a part-time of like 180. And the only reason why I say that is, think about how many competitors you actually have there. Think about the flow of the competition, and whenever you don't have those actual part-times, it can throw the flow off, and it could back things up. And I'm just saying this from a RO perspective and from a match director perspective. You want to have some kind of part-time, even if it's a longer one. That
Okay.
way everybody, whenever you're calculating, like whenever I do matches, the way I kind of plan them is I try and allocate, if I have 10 squads or 10 people per squad on a stage, I want to allocate 6 minutes per person. And that's, a minute of getting them ready, a minute to 2 minutes of them shooting, and another minute of resetting. And then any time in between where, people are taking their time. So you want to generally have it anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes in between each shooter if it's only a 10-man squad. So just some considerations as you move forward. Just things I thought about as you were talking about it. Like, I always try, if I'm going to do a max part-time, 180 to 240 as a max.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely take that into consideration. That's definitely one thing that we're a little untested in maintaining a match flow,
Yeah.
because we only do 1 or 2 matches per year, and then COVID kind of threw some gears into those, or some wrenches into those gears. But yeah, definitely thanks for that tip, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you need anything, like while you're going through it, or if you want any kind of, I'm available to call anytime, like while the match is going on. Like, if you just want something, hey, what do you think of this? Or even before it happens, just, give me a call, let me know, and I'll
Okay,
try and answer as best as I can.
definitely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Matt, quick question for you. Do you basically assume that every shooter is going to hit their part-time, like hit the part-time?
Yes, I do. In planning considerations, I actually do. If they're obviously below it, then great. But I always try and keep things moving, because it's best for the RO staff, and it keeps timelines moving. It's a measurable amount of time to where you can plan around whenever you're coming up with your match schedule.
Right. And then like assuming that some of your shooters are going to shoot faster, then that actually gives you a little more time to play with, which is also a good factor, especially considering that we just had daylight savings time, Parker, and that it's going to be getting dark a lot sooner. You mentioned yourself that your staff's not super well versed in this style competition. So I'd try to stack the deck in your favor as much as possible. I remember the days of the tactical games before they had part times. Dudes were literally taking like an hour to get some dudes were getting into their cars and leaving in the middle of courses. Like that's how long it was taking some of those to finish. But I guess my another comment is I can't help but notice the similarity between the intramural to the format of the Mic, which I think makes sense, right? Like you guys are going to get a taste of the Mic before they get to the Mic, both in terms of instructorship, but also in terms of the format. Are you basically directing your shooters to the Marine Corps shooting team's rulebook in preparation for the event? Is that basically what you're adopting?
I thought you were gonna be let me be the bad guy and ask this question.
What do you mean bad guy? If someone's guys, it's the Marine Corps. If someone's done the work, why would you reinvent the wheel?
Exactly. That you go to every new unit you show up to, and you take off all of the documents from your old unit, you R&D it, rip off and duplicate.
Hey, Matt, you know who what a bad guy would be? Pretending that stuff isn't out there already and making your staff make it from scratch. That would be straight up evil.
That is truly villainous. Yes.
Like once I put on oak leaves, I'm gonna wear a monocle and go twirl my handlebar mustache so I escape in my hot air balloon. It's like, aha, you have to do staff work from scratch. Haha. Anyway,
Yeah, luckily
Parker.
I've lost my monocle, so
Oh no. Get another one from Sif.
yeah, so the question was about the rule book, right?
And the
Yeah,
format,
so I
like
did
inspiration. Yeah.
What-
Yeah,
It's-
exactly. So go ahead, Matt.
No, so I'm saying I'm just gonna scratch my question away from why are we getting away from bullseye?
Oh, we'll talk about it for sure. But yeah, so I did hit up Master Sergeant Capco and Captain Williams earlier for the rule book, because I think the version I had was the 2.1, and I think they're on 2.3 or 4 now. But they sent that. I sent that off to our team, and we've been using that as our guidelines for one, to catch up our inexperienced RO staff up with everybody else, and is just our frame of reference or for our planning factors for the match.
Nice. Matt.
So one sec. My phone's going crazy. I'm sorry, people. Yeah. So am I still asking my
important man,
question,
Matt.
Frank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it,
All
man.
right, cool. I'll be that guy then. You know, obviously there's a lot of us that did a lot of work. Some people look at us as assholes, bad guys, whatever you want to call it. Like we're taking a shift away from the, high power and bullseye disciplines, obviously. And we didn't direct anybody, whenever we were on the shooting team, that they had to do the same thing. But obviously Stone Bay is taking a step to go more into the action oriented disciplines. What has that done for you guys, and why have you moved away from those disciplines?
Yeah, and I think that's a great topic of discussion in any shooting competition atmosphere, because shooting world has started to diverge into two different lanes, whereas action shooting and then the old school bullseye shooting. So I'm gonna preface this answer with I grew up as a bullseye shooter, so that way all your listeners who are already bullseye shooters out there who are already starting to get pissed off at me, just know, guys, like I am a bullseye shooter. I grew up doing three position air rifle, small bore international, and that is what kicked off my shooting addiction, really. So I fully appreciate the bullseye discipline, because bullseye solidifies marksmanship fundamentals, and it through that simple repetition of doing the same movement over and over and over and over again, obviously builds that muscle memory, and it truly makes you an expert at something. But it doesn't produce a stress response in the shooter. For me, bullseye shooting is actually like a cathartic experience. Like going on the range and just doing the same repetition of the same thing over and over again is actually pretty relaxing for me. And like a bullseye competition is almost like range therapy. And that's not what Marines need to be training to right now. Combat is not a relaxing event. So they need to be able to train under a stress response. So there's a difference between marksmanship and combat marksmanship. So with combat marksmanship, you know, we've you know, with the old ART, Marines would be trying to brag like, oh, I shot was it 340 was high, or was it 440? Was it max
340.
possible
350.
points? Yeah,
350.
350
was
was
the
like
highest.
max. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like when Marines like, oh, I shot a 340, can I be on your shooting team? It's like, honestly, brother, like I don't care how high you shot with ART. I'm going to take you to the firing line. I'm going to give you a range, like a course brief, and I'm going to let you walk through the stage. And then I'm going to put you under pressure and say, do this as fast as possible. Oh, and by the way, there's going to be some mandatory reloads and target transitions and movement and entry. Beep, you know, and that beep makes people freak out. You know, you can even do something as simple as like an El Presidente, where it's a very simple course of fire. There's actually no movement. You're just standing there, and it's knowing 2 shots, transition, 2 shots, transition, 2 shots, reload, and do it again. It's a fairly simple movement. And you watch these people who say they're a great shot. Oh, I'm a good shooter. And then they just unfold. It's like, okay, yeah, you are a good shooter in the sense that you're an accurate shooter when you're not stressed out. So you've never been tested under pressure. And I need you to be able to think, like for combat marksmanship, I need you to be able to think under pressure, know how to manipulate your weapon, know how to move, and performing in that sense. That tells me who the good shooter is. So again, like I kind of already mentioned it, like how do we create that stress response in the shooter for combat marksmanship is, you know, I think the shot timer beep was like psychologically engineered to make people have short-term memory issues. 'Cause we've all been there, right? We have our stage plan and like, oh, this is easy. Like I'm gonna kill this stage, I'm gonna burn it down. And that shot timer goes off and you're just like,
What the hell am
what?
I doing?
What am I doing again? Why am I here? You know? We've all done it, we've all seen it. One, it's hilarious and it sucks. But it's a good training tool. So with the Marine Corps adopting the new annual rifle qualification course of fire, where they, you know, based off of their capabilities-based assessment and their shot analysis of lethal hits, it's no longer a 20 minutes, 20 rounds, take your time, breathe. It's, hey, you got X amount of seconds, you got 5 rounds, you're at 500 yards. In this 5-shot engagement, I need you to land 1 lethal hit. Like that, like the Marine Corps is moving in the right direction in that. They're looking at AMTP, the Advanced Marksmanship training package, which is great. We actually just sent a couple of Marines through AMTP and they just came back, one, far more capable shooters, but also better instructors too. So with the Marine Corps moving in this direction, we have to jump on that bandwagon. Like that's one, the direction the institution is going. So we have an institutional obligation to do that, but it's also the right direction. I don't know if you guys have gotten a chance to listen to the Brutecast podcast where they just had Colonel Jones and Gunnar Costa on talking about AMTP, and it's a very good listen. Obviously, Gunnar Costa is the marksmanship program management section, and Colonel Jones is the weapons training battalion Quantico commanding officer. So these two gentlemen have an entire career steeped in caring about marksmanship, but they're in positions now to greatly influence the Marine Corps in the direction it should go in terms of its marksmanship. So with all that going on, we're just reading the tea leaves in the Marine Corps. To me, it was an easy choice of what direction we needed to go in.
You know, I have something, well, I find it kind of funny, but most people will probably like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? you know, so when at the height of COVID, whenever like it was on and off whether nationals was going to happen up at Camp Perry, Ohio, I was joking around with one of the guys like, you know what? Maybe we should go to Camp Perry this year. Maybe they should host nationals because, like, if you look at the demographic of people at Camp Perry,
Oh,
it's
I know what
either
you're going with.
really young people or really old people, and like, there's not much difference. You know, there's not much in between the two. So, like, and the majority of the people are all really old. So if they all show up to Camp Perry and they all die, Bullseye dies with them, and and I mean,
And
I
it
guess
it definitely is.
I know that's wrong to say, but you know, that's what something that came to my mind. But I mean, I'll say, you know, and I've said it before. I don't necessarily hate it as a sport. You know, whenever it comes to being a sport, like, hey, you do you. Like, if you want to go shoot bullseye, like, you're getting out there, you're shooting, you're doing something that you enjoy. But I guess my problem is in the Marine Corps, we have so much better training and we have something else that we can focus on. So why are we going to allocate our time to doing something that's not giving us any measurable difference in our abilities? Whereas if we do, you know, this combat marksmanship style of shooting, we are absolutely doing something that is relevant to the way we fight.
And it's tailorable, it's modular.
Yeah.
You shoot the National Match Course of Fire for the CMP. Cool. I've got it memorized. I know
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I've done it a million times. But when I go to the match tomorrow, I don't know what the stages are going to look like till I walk on deck.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, I have to have a skill library to be able to pull from. Like, okay, at this point, I need to be able to do this. I need to be able to, and practice certain skills like footwork, like listening to your guys' podcast with JJ. Um, Footwork is huge in our sport. Whereas bullseye, you don't want to have good footwork in bullseye.
Hmm.
Hmm,
So
interesting. So the intramural has been bullseye oriented for the longest time at Stone Bay. How did you sell this change to your battalion commander? And what advice would you give to individuals that are in the fleet trying to sell their commands on the benefits of practical shooting? A lot of commanders, like my battalion commander at 8th Com, had never done this before. I took him out to the range a few times and we just kind of did some training. And he eventually showed up to a match, but it definitely took some time and persistence in order to get him to like see what it was all about.
yeah, that's a challenge because without commander's buy-in, it ain't happening, right? So that's key. Luckily for pitching this change, I didn't even have to pitch it. I showed up to Weapons Training Battalion in June or July of this year, and a couple weeks later, we got a new battalion commander. Lieutenant Colonel James Geiger checked in and took command of the battalion. There's two Lieutenant Colonel James Geigers in the Marine Corps, by the way. They're actually both James M. Geigers. One is a CO up at SOI here on the East Coast, and so Lieutenant Colonel James M. Geiger Jr. is our CO down at Stone Bay. So if anyone's looking in the gal to yell at or to tell him I screwed this podcast up, just James M. Geiger Jr. Look for that one. But yeah, he got to Weapons Training Battalion about 2 weeks later, and he's an infantry marine, and he is entirely focused and passionate about boosting the individual marine's lethality. That was his number one priority, and that's my number one priority. And his willingness to like he isn't a competitive shooter in that sense, but he's an open book in that, like, okay, I know what I don't know, and I know what skills my people have to be able to foster this what I want. So who do I need to leverage, right? He knows my background as a competitive shooter, and he's put a lot of trust in me in hosting this match. So it's refreshing to have a commander that has your back in everything you do. So I know if I make a decision that may be unpopular, or I might need the weight of a silver oak leaf, I'll have it. So for Marines who have skeptical commanders, and I'm not saying this in a bad way because skepticism is the chastity of intellect. It's a good thing. I want people to be skeptical of new things. So that skepticism is founded because this isn't something that many people are exposed to. But for me, the easiest way to break through that skepticism is to expose them. You don't need to try and do like a nice formal brief with great PowerPoint skills and all this research and data points and say why we need to do this and why we need to do that. It's simply put on a live fire range, go out, invite your CO, and he can either observe or they can participate, whichever. Watching USPSA or this action style shooting from a tactical standpoint, if you show up to it as a tactician and you look at the professional side of the competitive shooting sports, it's easy for Marines and DoD service members to see a lot of or perceive a lot of training scars. And I get that, especially like things with like 3-gun, like we don't abandon our weapons. I get it. But put your CO on the X, give them a brief, give them the course of fire. The second they hear that beep, like we talked about earlier, like they're going to blank out, they're going to bumble through the stage. At the end of the stage, there's a light bulb waiting for them. They're going to be like, okay, there's something to this. Even if, remaining tactical, having, being doctrinally sound, not doctrinally bound, is important. So staying tactical in the things that you're training to, but still going out with these action style shooting courses, your CO is going to see that there's untapped potential in this. I also recognize a lot of units probably don't have the instructors or the Marines with those skill sets to host that kind of training. And obviously we as planners and we as leaders have to minimize unnecessary risk wherever. And if we don't have the personnel to do that safely, then I get it. A commander's not going to buy off on that kind of training. So the solution for that is hit us up. Contact Weapons Training Battalion. We have the ability to send out mobile training teams with our MTU cadre, and they will come to your unit and they will help you host that kind of training safely to expose your CO to it, to get him to or them to foster that participation and get that commander buy-in. So call us.
Yeah,
So-
that's awesome. Sorry, Matt, quick thought. What Parker said about getting your CO out is really important. Like, have everything ready for him, give him his own pistol, give him his own belt, have the mag loaded, make it so easy for him to just like put the stuff on and go shoot. But also like knowing what COs go through, because Parker, you were a company commander, I was a company commander. I've seen enough of what battalion commanders go through. Like they don't have a lot of time to do cool Marine shit. Like, so if they get a chance to go see the Marines in the field or go throw some rounds downrange, then you're getting them away from their office and they're most likely going to take you up on that offer.
They'll love you for it.
Yeah, exactly. Like yeah, absolutely. Get those guys and gals out of their
Yeah.
offices.
Do them a favor and get them away from their office, please.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned something in there, and you don't know this yet until about now. So tomorrow, it's Thursday night here, but on Friday, our episode on training scars, which is heavily debated, is coming out. It's called what do we call that episode again? Something of entertainment.
The dark side of
entertainment.
Yeah, that's good.
And training scars is mentioned. So tomorrow I highly I think you should really listen to that because it's a good one and it's a spicy one. Like we had Mike Pannone on again and it was a really good episode. But kind of moving along. So how are you communicating with other commands that this isn't just the same old style of intramural and that there are benefits for their Marines to attend the event? And I know you kind of hit on some of those there. And, it was kind of funny that, we were talking before this, but, I had a friend I was talking to this week and they said, that they weren't going to be able to go. And all of a sudden their battalion commander said, no, we are absolutely going. We can put together a team. We're getting Marines out to that intramural event. It's a training opportunity that we can't pass up.
Yeah, that's definitely been the messaging piece or the information campaign. That's a challenge. Because these commanders who have been around for a while, who have seen the old style of competitions, and they've seen the one-handed pistol bullseye competitions. I won't share my thoughts on those, but yeah, you look at that and like, okay, what skill is this giving my Marine? Why am I going to give up a Marine for 2 weeks to learn how to do this? So that's been a challenge. I do feel these past couple of weeks I've felt like a telemarketer or a door-to-door salesman, just calling up people. Our CO and our gunner went up to the Combat Marksmanship Symposium up there in Quantico last month, not to talk about this, but it's just more institutional level stuff, but sharing some lessons learned from other FMTUs. Colonel Mitchell invited me to go to, or I got an invitation, and Colonel Mitchell was kind enough to give me 5 minutes of briefing time at the 2nd Division's Operations Bureau. And so I got to sit in front of all of the divisions worth of OPSOs and say, hey, here's what Stone Bay is putting on. Here's what we can do for you. And by the way, guys, like, you are the infantry, you are the primary customer for this. So we got to do that. And if the COs are getting it from my CO and the OPSOs are getting it from me, and they come together and they start talking the same words along the same vein, you know, that seed is going to get planted and bloom very, very quick. We also, Mickey East just had their Warfighter Symposium. So for all the company level leadership to come out and learn what kind of range capabilities from an installation level that Camp Lejeune has, we attended that. And our CO and gunner and ops chief got to talk to a bunch of company commanders and say, hey guys, like, your CO and your OPSOs are aware of this, bug them about it. Register that demand signal. If they don't know you're interested in this, they're not gonna really care. But if they hear it from us and then they start hearing it from you, you're gonna probably get them to buy in for that. We've had numerous team captains meetings in person, and we recorded them and put them on Teams because technology is a pretty cool thing. So we've recorded all of the team captains meetings and put them on our public Teams page. Through the local shooting network here at Camp Lejeune, I think, Frank, you started the Camp Lejeune shooters signal chat that we're in. So just hitting guys up on there, and I know a lot of them have PCA'd or PCS'd or EAS'd, but the ones that remain, just, hey, talk to your command, see who's interested. Because the young Marines, like, okay, who doesn't want to go out and shoot? Oh, and by the way, it's not tables 3 through 6. It's something different. It's gonna be it's a new flavor, and you're gonna learn some pretty darn relevant skills. Like, yeah, who doesn't want to do that? Infantry to admin. We've been calling commands from the OPSO to OPSO, commander to commander. Even just talking shit. Like, hey, 22nd Muse hosting a team. Why aren't you 24th, 26th? Like, come on, Muse. Why aren't you putting a team together? You'd be damned if you let the 22nd beat you, right? So just kind of fostering that competitive nature between Marines. We've been doing that as well. One of our selling points for them is what benefits, why, what with them, what's in it for me, what's in it for the Marine. Like, yeah, they'll get their ARQ and CPP qualifications for the year, but they're going to have some really good skill sets to be able to take back to their commands and host their own training and pass these skills along to their Marines, as well as we shoot just bragging rights. Who doesn't like having their name on a trophy? Well, commander doesn't like being able to tell his regimental commander or division commander and say, hey, sir, we've owned this trophy for the past 5 years, and we got to keep it for another 6 year, right? Like, our unit name is on this trophy. Who doesn't like that?
What Marine doesn't want to go out and win something?
Right.
So
Don't we have a publication on that? Weird.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, all the things that you're doing are absolutely fantastic.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, so I think what you're touching on is like, I guess a decent part of officership is salesmanship, right? Like getting
Yes.
out there and being able to articulate the benefit, like the what's in it for me. that's such a big part of being effective in the Marine Corps. But what you're doing too is like, you're not just content to like get something in a newsletter and send out a bunch of emails. Like you're actually going out and talking to people, which is great. I'm excited to see the turnout for your event. But really, that's what you got to do. Too many people are just like, "Oh, I sent them an email." I was like, "That, you know how many Marines I've walked past with like 500 unread emails? It's just gotten worse since we have like cloud-based storage." Yeah.
Oh, prior coordination's been conducted.
Yeah.
Really,
You know,
has it?
you know what
You
I
sent
did?
him a text.
There were times whenever I would come off a leave where I would just hit delete. Not all the time, but sometimes, because it's like, this is old, this is old, this is old. I talked to him. This is old, this is old. Lost in translation. Like people's inboxes get flooded and they don't
Mhm.
take the time to read.
Especially busy people like XOs, commanders,
Mm-hmm.
OPSOs. Like, yeah.
They're only focusing on the important stuff, which is
Mm-hmm.
relevant to them.
Yeah. But if you can get face to face with them
Mm-hmm.
and you can hear the passion in your voice about what you're talking about and what this provides them, that's a huge, huge uh one. It's a salesman technique, and I hate saying that because I hate used car salesmen. Um, but yeah, you have to be able to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. Face to face phone calls infinitely better than just sending a text or an email. But we talked a little bit about this, but could you detail the process of working with range control, your battalion staff to prepare for this particular event? Were going into this, were you the only one on your staff with any action experience? And if so, how did you communicate the intent of the event to your staff?
Yeah, that's been fun. Having Chief Warrant Officer 4 Gunner Brown, a 30-year gunner, the dude breathes all things weaponry. He's been invaluable. He's forgotten more about weapons than I will ever learn. So he's been super invaluable for our planning process. We've been working with him to ensure that all of our courses of fire adhere to the SDZs for our ranges. So we're not like we got to put on some good training, but we got to do it safely first and foremost. And in the event that something that we're planning out requires a deviation of some sort, either be a caliber SDZ reduction or APL reduction, something like that, then we identify that early enough, 90, 100 days out, so we can communicate that to range control, get the proper deviations submitted on time and approved by the proper people. The good thing about Stone Bay is we're very self-sufficient in a range operations perspective. All 8 ranges aboard Stone Bay, like we hold the scheduling rights for, and we can design our own courses of fire as long as it falls within the Camp Lejeune range regulations. Then we can execute accordingly. So that's really nice being a unit that's self-sufficient like that. But kind of sitting down, it's like, okay, we know that we are tasked to host the intramurals and the MIC competitions every year. You sit down at your desk as a planner, and you're like, okay, where do I start? Right? You've got to put pen to paper sometime, and you're kind of like looking at this massive burger in front of you. Like, how do you eat an elephant? Just one bite at a time. You got to start somewhere. So backwards planning, having a vision of what you want your match to look like, and then from there you have that vision. That's your first step, and then you assess what your capes and limbs are. What capabilities and limitations do you have? What personnel do I have? What resources do I have on hand? What personnel do I not have? What resources do I not have that I need to get to make this? So one of those early on identified is yeah, we do have some from range officer, not Marine Corps range officer, but just range officer cadre. We do have a couple of guys in our battalion who are fairly familiar with that, but I can't use they can't be on every single range all day. Like we have to be able to rotate them. So having to train guys up. So that's definitely a personnel limitation that we have. It's a shortfall. But luckily I'm not the only person on staff with some competitive shooting experience. A lot of our range, go
Master
ahead.
Sergeant Andre Mortala. I know whenever he was over in Texas, him and I
Yep.
were talking some.
Mhm.
And I mean, like we mentioned it before. That guy's a workhorse. He's
Oh,
awesome. I worked with
he
him when
doesn't
we were
stop,
both.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he's
worked with
great.
him when he was a staff sergeant.
Mhm.
Awesome dude.
Mhm.
And I think having somebody at his level with that experience, it's gonna help.
Yes. Yeah, it helps having two of the more senior members in the battalion who speak that language,
Mhm.
so that Marines can come to either of us for questions, and we're gonna give them the same answer. But yeah, we do have quite a few Marines in our range staff and our marksmanship training unit staff that shoot competitively. One of note is Sergeant McIntyre. He has been kind of the mad scientist behind this. He's the guy who's getting it all done, basically. I kind of gave him creative freedom to design a lot of the courses of fire, and he's been hosting range officer classes for our staff based off of the Marine Corps action shooting rule book. And we're using that as our guideline, but um, he's been hosting those classes and catching our guys up. So uh, it's been fun. It's been a challenge for sure, because I know in my head I know what I want and I know what I want it to look like, but being able to communicate that effectively to my staff um, has been a challenge. Like it's definitely highlighted some weaknesses and shortfalls in my own personal professional abilities, but it's been a good exercise to make me get better at it. So definitely something I still need to work on, being able to communicate my intent as an OPSO much more effectively, but it's been fun.
The good thing about it is that you're getting over all this within the first months of you being the OPSO. So, I mean, you're probably gonna learn some things from this evolution, but going forward, your staff's gonna be that much more locked on for future events. So
Mhm.
it's awesome to
Yeah, and
hear.
even small things like Matt saying, "Hey, by the way, you said don't use a part-time, but highly recommend, and here's why." Like, yeah, absolutely. Guess what? Didn't have to think about it. I'm gonna use part-times now. So thanks, Matt.
Hey, no problem. That's what I'm here for.
Your
Uh,
beard looks amazing, by the way. Like,
Wait, can
Thank
we
you.
get you to say part-time sponsored by 3GIQ? Kidding.
Matt, did you retire and then just wake up the next day with an incredibly thick beard?
I wish it was that easy, but no.
No, I
It seems like it was overnight.
I watched it. I watched it happen in flipbook fashion, so it wasn't overnight. I can tell you.
It's blossoming just nicely.
It looks good.
There's probably a lot of bourbon mixed into it at this point.
So you're
Um,
saying it tastes good and it smells good too.
yes,
Seasoned.
absolutely. Yes, it's a seasoned beer, like some ginger with some white, to show the age a bit.
Mhm.
Age equals wisdom. Yeah.
I don't know if it works out. I know a lot of old people who are stupid, but
Also true.
yes. Uh, so we already mentioned that you're going to be using your staff to be the ROs. So my question is, how are you adapting them to become ROs? What kind of training are they receiving? Obviously, you have some guys who are competitive shooters, but what part are you guys playing in making them proficient?
Yeah, so this is one thing that we kind of leaned into fairly early on. We were able to send two of our Marines to AMTP because SOI has the ability to run that course now. So we sent them up the street and sent two Marines through that. And we also sent three Marines to MICMIC NCR these past couple weeks. So I think Frank, you might have ran into a couple of them.
Yeah, you mentioned their names.
Yeah, so and we sent them up there. One, they're good Marines. They've been working hard for us, so it's like, hey, here's a reward to be able to go do this. But also, by the way, take notes. Take notes not just on your own personal skills to get better, but take notes of observe how is the range ran? How are they doing rotations? Um, so if you can look at how something is executed and kind of take notes in that sense, come back and guess what, guys, we're going to be using you fairly heavily um, to make this thing go smooth. And it was a sergeant and two lance corporals. And one of the biggest joys I get out of being a Marine and being a leader is getting the opportunity to give my lance corporals the opportunity to shine, because I think they're very often overlooked and underutilized. And it's like, hey, Lance Corporals can do some very amazing things. And by the way, they're going to host and they're going to run the Camp Lejeune base intramural marksmanship competition. And it's going to, like, I'm going to have Lance Corporals up there being ROs, because guess what? They now have the skill set. They're capable of learning. We taught them, and they're executing with some vigor. So that's been fun to watch them develop. Yeah, McIntyre's been holding some more RO courses to spin them up. But later next week, we're going to do some dry fire and live fire rehearsals of not just, hey, as an RO, here's how you make sure that the range is safe. You should be the last one to walk up once everyone's done pasting, so you can make sure that there's no one hiding behind a blue barrel. So you call the range clear, and you tell the shooter, make ready. And all right, are you ready? Stand by, beep. Shooter, if you finish on load, show clear. I see clear, slide down, hammer down, holster. Like, we all know that. We can regurgitate that. That's easy. But it's the other things too, like, hey, how do we set up a range? How do we set up a course of fire? It's not CPP or ARQ where there's target carriages, and we need to be able to read a blueprint from a range diagram and transfer that to reality. So we'll have having teams of people out with some environmental friendly orange in surveyor paint to go mark stuff out preemptively, and then people follow them in trace behind them with target stands or shooter boundaries, or target boxes, things like that. So we're going to do some range setup and tear down rehearsals. We're going to do live fire, actual, like, running Marines and competitors through the courses of fire, and then flip flop and then tear it down. All right, set it up, do it again. We're going to be doing those kinds of things here next week. We luckily have Marine Corps Ramadan, of Veterans Day, the ball, Thanksgiving. All that time frame is, our range complex is cold during those 3 weeks, so we have that time to dedicate to making our Marines capable of ROing this competition for the first time.
Yeah,
Awesome. Frank,
awesome.
I have a follow-up, but I think we might have the same thought in mind with the next question. So go ahead, ask yours, and if if it's not in line, I'll ask my question.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, man. I mean, this is a huge undertaking. I can tell just from hearing you talk about all the planning steps and everything you've had to do to get your people ready, how much work you put into it. So I'm excited for this event. You're an opsin. You're already looking into the future. I know that. What other projects related to competitive shooting do you have planned in the future for Weapons Training Battalion Stone Bay?
Yeah, you're gonna make a good OPSO one day, because it's not about tomorrow, it's about tomorrow's tomorrow, right?
Yeah, man.
So yeah, we got the close fight is intramurals, but I'm already looking past that. So yeah, we definitely have a lot of stuff working. So we're trying to broaden the spectrum of the special targetry that we have. We do have a lot of steel. We have the ability to do things like plate racks and various size steel at distances for long range rifle stuff, or pistol plate racks, things like that. We just got a pretty large order of some new steel because our old steel was unserviceable. We got some target hit indicators, so those magneto speeds,
Nice.
those magneto speed type items where it attaches to the steel and it blinks real bright so you can see it. Getting some tablets, so submitting IT waivers to get new tablets so we can actually start running practice score. Building some new firing platforms. So those are all things that we're doing on the range side, like the actual conduct of range operations. But more importantly, we're looking at hosting quarterly competitions, because I mean, you guys have all been to a million competitions and match directed competitions, and it's not this big logistical burden that a lot of people think it is. I mean, yes, it is. It's especially larger matches. It can be, but just hosting an easy, short weekend competition, it's easy. So why can't we do that? Let's have Weapons Training Battalion host a quarterly intramural competition, and it culminates at the end of every year in the annual intramural competition. Let's do stuff like that. So we're exploring those ideas. but also ARQ is literally less than 50% of what we do at Stone Bay. Yes, we host the annual rifle qualification of all of 2MEF. So every Marine and sailor who needs rifle qualification comes through us every year. And that totals about 16,000 Marines every year, trying to up that number. But also in our other satellite ranges, we had over 22,000 Marines receive additional training on our ranges. So that, looking numbers wise, it's more than half of what we do. So we're looking at increasing the capabilities of what the Stone Bay Range Complex can provide the small unit leader specifically. Because we have a lot of small ranges. We actually have a lot of training areas. Not a lot. We have 3 training areas where a squad leader can take his squad out and start working some patrols, some defensive positions, getting his guys to do a defensive fire plan sketch, train to those 1 through 3,000 level TNR standards. I think that if we're able to do this, will help with it's obviously I'm kind of stretching this, but like NCO retention. Any CO's exit interview that I've done as a company commander, it's like, hey, like why are you getting out? You're a great corporal, man. Like we'd love to keep you. Why did you decide to get out? And a lot of the corporals will say, I haven't been given the opportunity to be a corporal, or I don't feel like I have. And NCOs just want an NCO. It's like, well, cool. Stone Bay Range Complex can give that to you. Come out here and be a sergeant. Take your Marines out, and yeah, take them out to the field for a couple of days. If you don't want to sleep in the field, fine, cool. We have barracks. You stay in the barracks. We have a chow hall. We have a gym. We have showers. We have an armory. We have magazines. We store all your ammo. We can do all of that aside from picking you up. We don't have a motor T section, but you get yourself here. This is a little paradise for you. So we're really looking into a lot of that for that smut kind of stuff. So
Well, that kind of stole my follow-on question, and that's kind of what I wanted to hear. I mean, I guess plainly putting it, Camp Lejeune does not have a lot of opportunities for local multi-gun USPSA action style discipline matches, and there needs to be more opportunities. Like I can go anywhere in Virginia and shoot a USPSA match. I can drive, a few hours up north and be in either Maryland or Pennsylvania and shoot a 3-gun match. I typically drive 4 hours south to go shoot a local 3-gun, which is down in North Carolina. And, that's because those are good matches there. And it would just be really nice to see a really good match down by Camp Lejeune. Like, a really good match down by Camp Lejeune for those Marines to participate in. That way they're not driving hours away, trying to get some trigger time in. So no, that's awesome. That's kind of what I wanted to hear. I want to hear about opportunities for people to hone their craft.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, obviously this is something I'm very passionate about. I think I've been placed in this billet for a reason. And I'm going to take my passion and try and translate it to benefiting the young Marines, because I'm a major. You can look up the DoD pay charts. This is an expensive sport, and if I'm driving to Sir Walter every other weekend for 3 hours, which, by the way, Frank, I'll see you there next week, or in December. Sorry.
December, yeah.
Yeah, but like ammo, match fees, gas, time away from family, which we're Marines, we already are away from family quite a bit. And so when you're home for the weekend, the wife and the kids want you home for the weekend. So having to take an entire day, 3 hours to Sir Walter, shoot all day, it's $100 match fee. I'm spending $100 in ammo and gas. And I'm a Lance Corporal. I'm a corporal. Are you kidding? And I got to come home, and I finally get home, and Saturday's gone. And then the wife builds resentment or things like that. It's just not a good all around picture. So try to make that soil a little bit more fertile for us. So we have an opportunity to do that. So the CEO's on the same page as me. and we're gonna work our butts off to make that happen for sure.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We appreciate all your efforts, and I think your event's going to go off awesome based on all the time and attention and effort you're putting in. If I'm a Marine, I just heard about this intramural and there's still time to sign up. Who do I reach out to?
Yeah, great question. Because if we don't talk about that, then what's the whole point of this podcast, right? So obviously we have to. There is paperwork side to this. This isn't personal weapons, personal ammo kind of thing. This is Marine Corps issued weapons and ammo. So we do need to have the proper legalities in place in terms of storing other units' weapons in our armory. So to get all of that information, if you go to the Weapons Training Battalion public teams page and the public SharePoint, we have all of the coordinating instructions up there. On the Mickey East G1 publications library, they have the Bulletin 3591 that they sign out every year, that because this is the CG's match, General Nebel. So that's his tasking for the match, basically. And you'll see templates for the letter of authorization, temporary storage of weapons, the detail roster, so we can get anybody who needs chow, and the weapon serial numbers, obviously. So RCOs and SCOs and all those things. We got to get those serial numbers captured accurately, keyword accurately. LTI PFI sheets, those all got to be turned in. If units need to be or need weapons or they need billeting, we have the ability to issue out weapons and house Marines on Camp or on Stone Bay. Our barracks can fit about 400 Marines. So if there is a unit who needs to travel down here, or even like say a young Marine from 2-2, like we already have to be on the range early to to beat the sun up. I'm sure he doesn't want to wake up an extra 30 minutes to drive the 30 minutes down to Stone Bay. If he wants to sleep at Stone Bay, we have barracks for him. Get a little bit extra sleep, hang out, right? We can do that. So our public teams page, our SharePoint, and then also on practice score. So we are going to score the match through practice score this year to get instant results. So competitors just log into practice score. It's practiscore.com, register, and then in the matches block, just type in FY23, and 2 matches will pop up: Far East, which is Okinawa, and FY23 Mickey East Intramural Marksmanship Competition. That's us. All of those templates for all those documents I just discussed are on there. If they still have questions, if they still have unique situations or circumstances, give myself or Master Sergeant Moritala an email or a phone call. Our numbers are on our SharePoint pages, but I'm the only Major Tomasi in the Marine Corps. Master Sergeant Moritala is the only Master Sergeant Moritala in the Marine Corps, so we're easy to find on the gal. My office phone number, 910-440-1600. Give me a call.
Now, if after all that, and you guys have a social media page, don't you?
We have a Facebook page, yes.
Now, could they reach out via Facebook?
They can reach out via Facebook, send us a messenger. I have the rights to the account. Our Sergeant Major does too, and I think one other person. But if it's a shooting related question, I'll answer it. I'll reach out.
Awesome.
Awesome. So there you have it. If that all sounded intimidating, that's the exact same process you got to go through for the actual MIC proper. It's not bad. You just have to have all your ducks in a row, like get your weapon serial numbers and your EDIPIs and all meal card numbers ready, and just hammer out the paperwork. I promise
and we have the templates done too, so it's just plug and play.
Yeah, you guys do make it like really convenient and user friendly. And the fact that it's on Teams means that anyone can get it. So, Parker, I'm excited for your event. We'll probably have you on again to talk about how it all turned out. But anything else that you would like to leave with the listeners before we sign off?
No, guys, I really appreciate you having me on again. This obviously won't be released today, but to all the Marines out there listening, we are recording this on November 10th. So happy birthday, Semper Fi, gentlemen. pour one out for pour one out for Chesty.
Yeah.
But there's nothing I would rather be doing on the Marine Corps birthday than discussing and forwarding the Marine Corps' combat marksmanship efforts.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
That's-
no better way to end the episode.
Right.
To our listeners, appreciate your time. If you're a Marine in the Camp Lejeune area, get your ass over to Intramural. Thank you for listening and let us know how we're doing.